Hello, Wendy.
Hello. I, I'm very early. Why not?
No, I think you're just in time.
In time. Because I was at another meeting and I
Yeah.
thought I wanted to come on to this
I
to
mean,
hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Waiting
But it's only two of us.
at this moment, yeah.
Okay, right. And I just don't know how I keep, when I say I see this, I wanted to attend it because I really want to know. It's decolonizing the decolonial group, right? And I wanted to know
Exactly. Yeah.
it's what it is about and what does it mean, because we are, we all different.
Yeah.
That's what I want to.
There's Lucy.
Somebody else is coming, yeah. Right.
Yeah, Lucy is coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And Patricia.
Yep.
Hello, Lucy.
Hi, everyone.
Morning, hello.
So I'm thinking we give it maybe a couple of minutes, maybe like 5 minutes, just to allow people to come through, and then we might begin.
Mhm.
Mhm. Maybe Lucy, we can get to know each other in the, yeah, that also can wait a bit.
Okay, that's a good idea. Do you want to start us off, Polly?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm making some notes, okay? So I'm at the same time, I don't know if you hear it. I'm typing and people are coming in. I'm Polly. My last name is Hagenaars, but you can't pronounce it in English.
Hagenaars.
But anyone knows me by Polly. And I'm a member of the board of the ICP and started this interest group, which is now chaired by Lucy. And human rights, decolonization have my interest for a long time, and especially the implications of decolonization, as there is racism and institutional racism and violent epistemology, etc. So, and I'm great to meet you. Thank you. Shall I?
Great.
I am Wendy Jeremy from Trinidad and Tobago. I've just joined the ICP because I attended last year's conference, and I just thought I need to know about this topic myself because parts of it still exist. Even as I go to choir practice, we sing some music because the leader says this is still taking part in parts of the world. So we must sing towards this, So I am interested in finding out here what part the psychologists we can play in helping it, healing it, So I'm here to get what others think because I'm from the West Indies, so and I'm here. So happy to learn from you all. And you all from me, I suppose, whatever I bring to it, culture, because we are all different. Thank you.
Leanne, you want to go next? Only because on my display, it shows you next.
Sure, no problem. Hi, everyone. So my name is Leanne, and I'm a clinical psychologist based in Toronto in Canada. And I joined the ICP a couple of years ago, but this, I believe, is more or less my first time joining this special interest group. And like Wendy, a little bit maybe newer to this topic, but definitely really interested. And it's such a nice, I think, opportunity to connect with folks from all over the world who are in our profession. I feel like that's really, at least for me, really rare. And I guess I've been thinking a little bit more, talking with some colleagues about this topic too, just insofar as, I'm trained at, in very mainstream, I guess, approaches of therapy from like a large institution. I feel like, and I come from a country with power and influence in the West. And so I think I have a lot to learn about how I maybe contribute to ongoing colonial practices, like on a few different levels, I suppose. So, so yeah, I'm just here to learn how to do different.
Great. Thank you so much. And karibu sana. Stephanie, hi. Shows you're next on my board.
Okay, sounds good. Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie. I am located in Lodi, Wisconsin, which is in the United States. I've been a member of ICP for several years, and I've been part of this working group for quite a while. I don't know exactly when it started, but for maybe a year or two. So I'm lucky enough to know Polly and Mukuria, and I know Trish because she's part of my PhD program. So it's nice to be around some folks who are friendly faces, and it's wonderful to meet others that I've not yet met. I'm interested in this group because my PhD program is international psychology, and the goal is really to find a more global approach, to be more inclusive, and to really honor and recognize the psychologies that exist globally, and to learn from each other and to share the practices that are working in our local regions. So thanks a lot for making space today.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. Miss Stiles, you're up next.
Hello. Did you say my name? No. You did. Okay. So I arrived a little late because of some technical difficulties, and I guess people are saying why they're interested in the global network of psychologists for human rights. Is that correct? Or are you
And specifically
doing something else?
And specifically this interest group, you're correct.
So I've been involved in activities sponsored by the Global Network of Psychologists for Human Rights for more years than I can count. I live in the United States, but I work for an international university. And so I have had opportunities to work with children and families in 13 countries of the world. And human rights, especially child rights, always informs the work that I'm doing. I have just completed a study with a collaborator from Ecuador that's about the impact of earthquakes on children in Ecuador and New Zealand as examples. And there's a big part of the article that is about international children's rights and how it affects them. So I'm sorry I came late, and I'm glad to be here.
Great.
You're most welcome. Asante. George, you're up next.
Sorry about that. Oh, thank you. All right, let me just get my, I had some technical issues here too. No, thank you. This is, I joined the International Council of Psychologists just about a year ago. I'm in a PhD program actually looking at the psychology and human rights. It's kind of, I feel like I'm meeting a celebrity with Polly. Like I read her book and articles, and it's been like an inspiration to me, like to really so it's like, holy man, it's kind of odd, but I'm from Canada too, and I've always been passionate about human rights and about mental health and about psychology, and I think decolonizing, of course, it's a big issue here. I'm in Northern Ontario. It's a big issue with our First Nation people. It comes up a lot. There's been a lot of problematic relationships with the government. A lot of times what we hear from the First Nation communities too is that it's not just it's all of us who need to be involved in that learning. It's all of us who need to be. It's not like to say, okay, there's the Indigenous people over there, you do your thing. We need to look at our structures. And even as psychologists and psychological scientists, I'm in a psychological science program, I think using just the cultural capital and the academic capital of psychology to help move even frame what decolonization is, because what does that mean in real life, and what does that mean in real practice, and what are the implications in real terms, I think is really important. So I'm looking forward to this webinar and hearing from you all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, George, and karibu sana. Patricia?
Hello, everyone. Apologies up front. I need to stay dark. I am in transit and just came across a person that's in emotional distress. I'm shepherding in right now as we speak, unfortunately, some police and some EMTs. So it's a very live psychologist situation happening here and a little stressful. So I'll be quick and happy to share any other information afterward, because I might have to try to, hop off here and help out. But anyway, I am in New York. Like Stephanie said, we are cohorts from Chicago School of Professional Psychology. I defended last August, I believe it was, and I've been part of the ICP shortly thereafter. And, like everyone else here, is many shared interest in human rights, and part of that was included in my dissertation, where in part I was trying to really just shed a light for some of the injustices with neighboring communities around environmental justice situations such as fracking, and since then have done some other work with the United Nations UNITAR Fellowship, and am in the process of doing some other extended research on the matter. And again, I'm so sorry that I have to be dark and rush, but this is a developing situation, and I apologize.
No worries, no worries. Do what you have to do, Patricia. I think we and everyone else who is there is grateful that you're there to offer some professional intervention. So we hope you can at least, listen in and follow the conversation. And if you can't, that's okay as well. But thank you, thank you. I think everyone has been able to introduce themselves. The last one, if I'm not wrong. My name is Lucy Wairimu Mukuria. I am from Nairobi, Kenya, which is in Africa, of course. I got into the ICP because I am a military veteran for the Kenya Defense Forces and a career psychologist, and working in the space of care and protection for military veterans. And in this side of the world, veterans, soldiers in general, are not treated like human beings. They're not treated like citizens. And that really bugged me. And I refused to accept it as the truth. So I went out seeking people who promote human rights. And that's how I ended up here in psychology. I also am in the board of the ICP, and I'm the chair of this particular interest group. And I think we are just all here to try and see how it is we can be able to expand our understanding and also just make our hearts more inclusive, learning from each other and improving how we deliver our professional services out there. So I'd like to welcome all of you to today's session. New people, welcome so much. I'm so happy to have you here. Old people, thank you for sticking it out with us. I'm so happy to have you here. And so we have the next 45 minutes to just cover what we need to cover for today. So unless there's any question, I will just carry on. Any question? We'll carry on. Very good. So I had an agenda for for this meeting. And the first item was to review last quarter's meeting. And I see there are more new people in today's meeting than the people who attended the first meeting of the first quarter. So I'll just catch you up on how we want to do this this year. Excuse me, I need to cough. I don't know why. That was weird, but I hope it's over. So we talked about having one meeting every quarter. That will make 4 meetings. We said that we want to be able to bring the kind of energy to this interest group that has to do with everyone bringing what they observe based on where they are located, bringing it to the group and being able to disseminate that information. It could be just where you work, where you live, what you observe, and the seminars that are going on, webinars that might be going on, books that are of interest, documentaries, movies, and any work that you could be doing that would be of interest to us, but also any collaborative work that you are doing with anybody else in the ICP, or you would like to do with anybody else in the ICP. That's basically what we would be there, just so that you can feel validated and affirmed, but also just so that it can just bring a whole new enlightenment. By Chimamanda Adichie, before they came to the meeting, a few of them managed to, but we were supposed to discuss it. So I'd just like to recommend that as something that you may want to look into, and you can always email your thoughts, your suggestions, your observations, your contributions, and we can just have a conversation around that. So that was basically what we talked about in the last meeting. And there were a couple of papers that were being discussed that had deadlines or at the end of March. So there's no point of me talking about them because the deadline already passed. But I believe out of that, a few of us were able to come together and are preparing a paper for the APA. I think 5 different perspectives from 5 different countries. So we are doing that. There's also the call for papers for this year's ICP conference, and I believe the theme is empowerment for all. So I just would want you to keep that in mind as well. So I'm basically talking about, again, just what we talked about in the last meeting. So, and bringing a bit of update based on what we agreed on. I think, Stephanie, you are the only person who was there in the last group of updates. Based on is the time, you can discuss that. Welcome.
You cut out a little bit. Could you just repeat what you said?
Oh, right now at the end?
Yeah, I just
Okay,
didn't catch what you wanted me to talk about. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so I'm saying that you are one of the members who were in attendance in the first quarter meeting. And so I wonder if you have any updates based on the agreed on action points from the last meeting that you would like to discuss. Yeah.
I don't think I have any updates. I mean, I know you did mention the APA paper that we're working on with 3 other international colleagues. It's for a special issue of the American Psychologist that's specifically about decolonization of psychological science. So as Mukuria mentioned, we've got people from 5 different countries who are talking about their individual experiences or work with regard to decolonization of psychology. And so it's not only geographically diverse, but it's also diverse in the different types of ways that people are approaching decolonization within their psychology work. But aside from that, I don't really have any additional updates. So I apologize, I don't have anything more prepared, but yeah, I'm definitely excited to continue to contribute to this group and see where things go.
Hello.
We're just listening to what's going on. I'm listening to what happened in the past. So nothing to add at the moment.
Mukuria, can you hear us?
Am I the one who cut off?
I think maybe she's not hearing us.
I can hear you. I
Ah,
think it was a blip in the
okay.
matrix.
Okay.
Okay. Lucy, are you asking for updates of us all about our work? You're frozen. Yeah, there you are again. Lucy,
Okay.
oh yeah.
Yeah, it seems I'm having an issue on my end. I might have to try and solve this problem.
Okay. Shall I take over for a moment? But I think it's nice to make a quick round what we are doing. Is that okay? Hello.
We've also had a couple of other people join us if they
Yeah,
want
I
a
see.
moment to introduce themselves.
That's a
Great.
good idea. Yeah. That's what I was about to say next. That is if I'm back. Am I back?
Yeah. Stephanie Davida and Saidin Kimangala joined us.
Yes,
Hello.
good evening to you. Hello, good evening.
Hi.
Hi, I'm glad to be here again.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much.
So we were just on point 2 of our agenda, but maybe just for everyone here, you could just say your name, where you're from, and why your interest in this particular interest group.
Okay, thank you so much. My name is Saldin from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And I'm interested in this group because as a clinical psychologist, and I'm working with a variety of international organization that we have a diversity in psychology and psychological sciences. So I would like to learn more about decolonization, especially part of psychology. Because nowadays I think we are so much intermingling with the world population. So to me, it's a learning experience. I just want to learn more in this topic.
Okay, thank you so much.
Oh, many people are coming in.
Deborah, do you mind muting your microphone? I think there's a bit of interference coming from there. I just want to read. Thank you sana ndugu yangu kutoka Dar es Salaam. Tumeshukuru sana. Karibu na karibu tena. So
Asante
Stephanie,
sana.
Karibu. Stephanie David says, I'm from New Jersey and have always been interested in this topic because I was taught in undergrad about how there tends to only be one perspective in psychology or a few, but in any case, it is limited. I think that's all she's written for now, unless my eyes deceive me. So I don't know, I'm presuming she wants to build a little bit on that. But I guess, again, it speaks to the danger of a single story, which is why I keep recommending the TED Talk by Chimamanda Adichie. Polly, do you have anything you'd like to add as an update from last week's meeting based on what has been going on with you from that last meeting to today's meeting?
Oh, yes. We had an opening of the 150th year commemoration of the abolishment of slavery by the Dutch. And we made a program, and we is a group of colleagues consisting of psychologists, psychiatrists, and anthropologists from Suriname, the Caribbean, and the Netherlands. So it's a diverse group. And we had just an opening, and we started the year. We have made a program with several webinars or panels. The first one was the opening around identity and what's meaning colonization and slavery for us all today. And the second will be around the mental health sector. It's so important that mental health professionals have awareness about their position and about their own frame of references. We will have a workshop that will be guided by psychiatrist Glenn Helberg, who is from the Caribbean. We will have a panel around education and youth, youth and families, and one around education. That's the last one. And I wanted to prepare this a little bit broader because colonialism is not only in Europe, although it was very huge there, but the mechanisms are still the same and still going on. So the main focus is on awareness and on connecting. So that was very interesting, and the special issue came out on decolonizing psychology, sorry, by SAGE, Journal of Psychology in Developing Societies. So I think that those are the main points that happened. Thank you.
Wow, thanks, Polly. Oof. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I'm blown away by all that, because it sounds like it sounds like real progress. It sounds like that to me, you know, and just to hear that that is happening is really something. Kimangale, you were in the meeting last time. I don't know what updates, if any, you have from our last meeting to today's meeting, in terms of maybe what you've come across, what you've observed, what you've done, or what you have discovered under the banner of decolonizing of psychology. Is he still here? Oh, he's gone. Okay, that's all right. That's fine. Great. So, Ufra Mir, is it possible for you to just unmute yourself and introduce yourself? It was only on the chat because somebody else can't unmute, but if you can, please do and introduce yourself.
I hope I'm audible. Hi, everyone. I'm Ufra. I'm from Kashmir. I'm a peace psychologist, and I work at the Institute of Mental Health Psychosocial Support, State Building, and Conflict Transformation. I've been doing this work for over a decade in conflicts across South Asia, but I'm also now working outside of South Asia. And as a simple way of protesting decolonization in psychology, I have intentionally kept my peace psychology work practice-based, which is not very common, and there's not a lot of support for it, especially from academia. But I think it's super important to also consider fragile conflict zones where sometimes responding to what's happening on a daily basis is the only option we have. And over the years, a lot of it has also affected my own well-being, my own mental health. But I think it's very important to see how do we occupy spaces in mental health psychology, building work, but in more empathetic, decolonized approach. So that's the lens I use in my work as well. I use a lot of community-based and very contextualized approach to the work I do, which involves a lot of experiential work with groups, with individuals who are very vulnerable in these contexts. I also run my own International Center for Peace Psychology. I'll stop there. Thank you so much for having me here. I've been really interested in the group, but I've never had the chance to be here. Finally here, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Ufra. I promise you, you're in the right place. Even as you speak, I can just relate to what you're talking about. In my country right now, there's so much warmongering, and it's purely for financial benefits. It's not going to bring about peace. It's not going to raise our human consciousness. If anything, it's just going to obliterate us. And so when you say peace psychologist, I can really identify with what you're saying. And when you talk about the kind of toll it takes on you as a person, I can totally identify with that. So I would love to get into conversation with you, just so that we can be able to talk about how to, to not be gaslighted by the situation, but to just keep ourselves well taken care of, but also maintain perspective. So I would love to get into that with you. Am I missing out on anybody else who was in last week's meeting, last quarter's meeting? Or is that it? I don't want to skip anyone over. I guess I'm the last one. So from our last meeting to the present day, I had an opportunity, I guess, to go to the American South. I was in Alabama, I went to Selma, I went to Montgomery. I basically did the civil rights trail. It was really heavy. It was, I would say it was an opportunity of a lifetime. And I think most importantly for me, it was able to draw the bridge between our own Kenyan experience and not only the civil rights movement in America, but also enslavement. We have reports of where slaves used to be, where my countrymen and other countrymen from Africa, now made into slaves, used to be put into boats and of course taken off to the Caribbean and America and wherever else they were taken. And so from our side of the world, I know from Zanzibar, Stone Town, how that slave holding place looks like. I know from our Kenyan coast at Fort Jesus, how that slave holding area looked like. I know in Uganda, Baker's Fort, how that looks like. And I know how the trail from Uganda to Sudan actually looked like. So it was like, for me, the two ends were fused, and it was pretty something. I think also most interesting was just the conversations I had with people coming out of that, listening to white people who are still defending that position and Black people who were extremely just exhausted really, and being able also to relate how that kind of violation of people's rights is still alive in my country today by virtue of neo-colonialism. So it's sort of layered, and therefore the idea of a global approach, an international approach, a multi-level approach is something I can't stress any further. I was just talking right now about the warmongering that's happening in my country right now. And again, we are being sold the same idea that somehow war is able to bring peace. And the politicians in my country are speaking like George Bush, I swear to God. same words, we shall go and find them wherever they are. They can't hide from us. We are doing this to, it's the same rhetoric. So how do you stop this wheel from turning? So that's basically what has been going on with me since then till now, of course, the paper that I'm doing. But I'm also sitting down just trying to titrate and write about my experience, which I think is going to be very, very important. So that's what's going on with me. Yeah, and that's it. So my object number 4 is talking about any other business. I know we have new members here. Please feel free to comment on what you've just heard us talk about, but also what your interests are, and just vis-a-vis what we want to do here. Feel free to make a contribution. That's our AOB. Anyone can unmute and just speak. You're free to, as long as you have a contribution to make.
Forgive me because I just joined and I'm not sure what the kind of work that has been done in this group so far, but I'm definitely interested in taking this forward and creating more safe space in terms of how do we support firstly each other in doing the work we do. And I know that takes a lot of effort and a safe space sometimes where we can at least check in and even just talk about, what's happening, how are we doing? I think well-being is so important in the kind of work we do, and it's often ignored for our own self. And the idea of self-care is, of course, very different in different contexts. So yeah, I'm happy to support with my center also. I'm trying to do a lot of work for the practitioners and professionals themselves and the peace builders and activists who are in the midst of all of this. Yeah, I would love to learn more from any of you or all of you how to maybe continue decolonizing the space and in terms of maybe, I don't know, networking or check-ins or some, sessions or self-care spaces. As I said, I don't know what's been done already, so forgive me if I'm repeating anything, but yeah, I'm open to any kind of collaboration. I'm happy to share my email as well if anybody wants to stay in touch.
Can I react? Yeah, because I think, Ufra, this is so important what you are saying. And I want to connect this with ethics, because many associations, psychologist associations, have a code of ethics, but they are mostly focused on not doing wrong and on the individual relationship between a psychologist and a client. When a colleague of us is doing work or is speaking out loud against a violation, or a threat of a violation, they are often ostracized or in any case not supported. So what I think is very much important that we are going to look at our ethical basis of our profession. I think that's one thing that's very much important. As you are saying, self-care is important because many of us are overloaded with work and often stressful work. And so that needs some support, but also permission to take care of ourselves. So I think maybe we can do a workshop one time about this theme. It's just an idea.
I love that idea, and we can actually continue the conversation after this and see what we can come up with. And maybe in our next meeting, we can be able to have it firmed up, or even if it happens in between, just have it firmed up and see whether we want to do it before our next meeting, or we want to do it as our meeting for the next time.
Yeah.
It's important. Thank you, Polly. George, I see you've unmuted.
Yeah, you shared something, and I think it's a current issue as well when you talked about war. And I think about the Ukrainian war and the global conflict that's having, and how, it just seems a lot of the people in the West, in the Western world, are mobilizing behind. And it's not and I struggle, as I don't think war is a good solution to issues. And yet it feels like if you oppose this, and even with my last name, I have to be conscious, like somehow you support the quote unquote invasion, and all of these layers of wanting to be able to say, how can we get an alternative? It's against a barrage of demonize. And I say this, I even feel I have to preface this, like I attend a Ukrainian Catholic, I'm part of that community. So I'm not like it's interesting psychologically how, even coming from this background, and I've lived in Canada my whole life, born in America, but I feel like even saying I have to qualify my opposition to war as saying I'm not pro this side, I'm not, I have to say a million things around that. And I feel like there's a logic that moves forward. And people are getting hurt, real life people are being able to get hurt. And can we mobilize things to have a different kind of solution? And I think it's almost like you don't hear that at all in Canada, certainly not in the US, anywhere. There's a barrage of demonization of the other person. And it does get into colonial. I mean, their argument, Russia, China, and the Eurasian, is that this is a colonial thing from NATO, whether that's accurate or not, or what, that's their perception. And I think we should engage it in a good spirit of how do we move towards peace and reconciliation. And part of that conversation is absent. And it feels like it's a difficult conversation to have here when the majority feels like, oh, you support them if you're for peace. And so it's just an interesting, current, challenging area, I think, for those of us who are committed to peace to be able to be in. Yeah, I just want to share that.
Interesting.
Thank you. Thank you for that, George. I mean, you would not have put it any better. I'm a military veteran. I have combat experience. And when I tell people war is stupid, I don't know, they think there's something wrong with me, and yeah, it's definitely something in my view that even as a person, I want to be in spaces where I can have that conversation. And so I feel like, you should join our cohort, mine and Ufra. I think we shall see about connecting.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now we can make a plan and let's talk, because it needs to be talked about. So I don't know, George, maybe you can drop your email address and I can reach out to you and I'll connect us and we shall see what to do. Stephanie, please vocalize what you're saying in the chat group, just so that we are all in tuned.
Yeah, sure. So Ufra offered the idea of, creating some sort of spaces that are healing for people who are involved in the stressful work of peace, or even just the stressful work of decolonization or psychology in general. Excuse me. And then Polly followed up with, how about a workshop? And my reaction is, I think a workshop is a great starting point. But when I think about the sort of stress and the sort of harm that individuals who are involved in this challenging work experience, it's not like it's a one and done sort of situation. It's definitely an ongoing strain and an ongoing process. And so I was thinking that having a more sustained approach might be beneficial. But I also recognize that that's a lot of work in terms of coordination and in terms of putting things together. So I was just thinking that if other people were individually or in small groups were interested in sharing healing from their own cultural perspective or from their own experiences, that might be a way that we could, continue to build community, continue to share practices that are beneficial from our own cultural frames of reference, and then also to make those spaces for people to share their stories and to work through the challenges they're experiencing in their practice.
Okay, great. I hear you. What would be the most practical way to move forward with this? Who wants to do this? And maybe in a week's time, you guys can come together and do this, just so that we have an action plan that is actionable and people follow through. What do you guys want to do?
I would be interested to hear from other people, whether they agree, first of all, and then also sort of like what degree of regularity. Like right now, this group is meeting quarterly. Like, is quarterly appropriate, or is there a different sort of time frame that makes more sense in terms of feasibility, people's availability, but then also in terms of just what is also going to be helpful. So I would appreciate hearing from other people what their thoughts are, and in particular, Ufra, since it was sort of her idea to begin with.
Yeah, sure. So I do a lot of work around also understanding how self-care, for instance, is very different in different contexts. The idea of self in itself is very different in different contexts. For example, in my context in Kashmir, we have a rich history of religion and spirituality. And for me, food, for example, is so important. So for me to even eat together with my family is huge psychosocial support, or going to or visiting spiritual shrines, for instance, is a huge psychosocial support for a lot of women who may not have access to, mainstream psychosocial support services, because we're still living in a place which has a lot of stigma around mental health, and it being a conflict zone, there's, less terms of professionals also on the ground. So I take inspiration from the context a lot. So in my work, I use a lot of inspiration from what it means to have the psychosocial support from your own context, whether that it's in terms of your architecture, for example, or spirituality. At my center, for instance, I have an initiative called Zoon Dub. Zoon in Kashmiri language means moon, and Dub means room. So Zoon Dub basically used to be a room in old Kashmiri houses, which was used to basically moon gaze and star gaze. And in simple words, it was just a space which was very intimate in terms of architecture. So you would just be kind of hanging around in the balcony or attic and, talking to people in your community, because we're very interconnected as a community. But now with the modern architecture, that's becoming less common. So the initiative is called Zoon Dub, which is an instant connection for the community. And it's a safe space community idea where I try to create safe space experientially for people to come and talk about what's happening to them psychosocially, for instance, in terms of the conflict that's been there for 7 decades, and what is their hope, and aspirations. It sometimes is also the only space for a lot of women who talk about abuse, for instance, who talk about domestic violence, for instance. So yeah, in my understanding, I think, as I think Stephanie was also talking about, the idea of self is very different in different contexts. For me, I see my well-being very much connected with the well-being of my community, which is very different from how a lot of Western societies may see it. So it's interesting to learn from different kinds of contexts. And in my work, I use a lot of that inspiration to then explore what self-care, for instance, means for different people. And maybe some of us are already practicing it, but we may not call it that. So yeah, I'm happy to, if you want, I'm happy to explore maybe one workshop or a series of workshop and anybody wants to help with that, I'm happy to do that. But I'm already doing this work with young activists, peace builders, to understand well-being also in a very holistic manner, and understand it not just from the lens of psychology and mental health, because well-being, I think, is much more than that. It's also your spirituality, it's your, environmental health, as we now are looking at how climate crisis is, such a big issue around the world. So for me, one of my main goals is to make peace building a more well-being oriented field in terms of its policies, frameworks, and how we approach different things, because I do believe these spaces are so colonized, so patriarchal in different ways, and we need to look at them from different perspective. And sorry, I'll just stop here, but one last point. For example, the resilience narrative is just so romanticized, especially the resilience and trauma healing of the surviving communities, of the occupied. And because I come from a place where there's been an occupation, and I can't even call it an occupation, I'll be put in a jail, I'm very mindful of not using the resilience narrative. For me, is just so counterproductive. And how do we then talk about the struggles, the struggles, especially of the marginalized, of the surviving communities, of the oppressed, without romanticizing? Because the idea out there is that if we make these people peaceful, we will have peace, there will be no war, which is again, such a colonized way of, thinking about this. So yeah, those are some of my reflections and thoughts. This is, of course, a longer conversation. We could maybe have a discussion around it. We can have an experiential session or workshop to kickstart. But I'm sure there's so much to add. And with everybody who's present here, you all come from different kinds of backgrounds. I'm sure you can add so much more to this. These are my initial thoughts. And thank you so much for being open to listening to this.
Thank you so much, Ufra. It sounds like we have a way forward. You posted your email address there. So moths, that is your light. Gather around it and let's get a workshop done, right? I think that's a solid way forward. Anyone else who would like to make a contribution before we come to the end of today's session? Please go ahead.
I just want to validate what you just said, Ufra. It's really, really important and wonderful. And when I was making this helping to make this special issue in developing societies, I said we can't use this concept anymore, because maybe in the Netherlands we are developed economically, but we are losing at the same time a lot of community, because the idea of the whole market working, you can't put community connectedness, you can't put it in figures or in economics or whatever, but it's so basic, it's so important. It's to create safe spaces, to create, what envelope is the French word, that we have all a kind of protection around us. That if we can help to build this, it will be wonderful. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to contribute this. When I think of self-care, I think of, in my country, for me, I think of the recreation of more functional families. I think the family structure has been destroyed. I think we need to get to the men who should be more present in their children's lives. So both parties, mother, father, can work together to show these children how to continue. Very often, the father is absent, so the mother has to do it alone. And I feel that if men have missed this too while they were growing up, they can't show it when they're adults. So for me, more community work to reach to the man who is drinking at 11:30 on a Saturday morning when he should be home with his family, showing his children, you know, how to clean the yard, how every families can get together. So for me, it's more, you know, and I'm talking about self-care for the woman now. You know, men need self-care too, but just recreation of family life that we've lost. We've gone, you know, men in the community need to talk to men to tell them, you know, how to guide them. I don't know, that's what I'm thinking about as we talk about our projects of self-care. For me, that is it, the family first, you know, in my life, I think. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that contribution, Wendy. And, you know, that's the diversity that we're talking about. That's the different approaches that can get us to what we are all seeking. That's what we are talking about. So gather around Ufra. Let's, I think it will be quite an interesting workshop, because even as we, you know, talk about self-care, yes, the community, yes, the religious, of course, here in Africa, we are talking about the divine, we are talking about flora and fauna, we are talking about rituals, we are talking about rites that are performed in a progressive sort of manner to them all. So I think this will make for an interesting workshop. So we are almost coming to the end of our meeting today. Is there any other last AOB that anyone would like to give? I will get confirmations about our next quarter meeting, and we shall be able to plan around that. But I really would want to encourage communication and conversation between now and the next time we meet amongst ourselves, because we know with the difficult work that we're doing, we know that self-care cannot be postponed. We know individually what we're doing, but I think in being able to share with each other, we can be able to support each other even as we do this difficult work, and we find community in each other. That's very important. I will be talking to you, Ufra, just basically about staying grounded and staying, you know, healthy through this toxic patriarchy warmongering nonsense that is going on, that is only putting more communities at risk, with women and children being the most affected. And it's just not helpful. So we are at the top of the hour. Oh, we have someone who has just come in. Hi, Judith, you have just come in at the tail end. This session
Okay, I got the time wrong. Okay, thanks. I got the time wrong.
No worries, but this session has been recorded. Polly, how are people going to get this session? You can send it through the board, and I think everybody can get it.
I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. So don't worry about it. You'll be able to get it. I want to thank everyone who showed up today so much. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much for showing up. And I look forward to engaging you intermittently until the next time that we are able to connect. So thank you all. Have a good evening.
I hope to see you all. Bye-bye.
Yes.
Time.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
One problem I want to, oh yeah. Yeah. Yes.